Listen closely, because what I'm about to ask you might sting, might press into the place you've been avoiding, and might expose something you've kept quiet for too long. What happens when you pray for intimacy, but nothing changes? What happens when you kneel beside your bed night after night, asking God to heal what's broken between you, yet the distance in your marriage only grows wider? What happens when one person is begging heaven for connection and the other is drifting further into silence, numbness, or resentment? There is a moment every hurting believer reaches, a moment where you whisper, "Lord, why isn't prayer fixing this?" Not because you doubt Him, not because you stopped believing, but because you're drowning in loneliness inside a relationship where love feels mechanical, affection feels forced, and intimacy emotional, physical, spiritual, feels like a locked door you keep knocking on. This is where the truth begins. Watch until the end, because what I'm about to reveal isn't soft, isn't comfortable, and isn't what most churches ever dared to say out loud, but it may be the one truth that finally exposes why your marriage has been stuck for years. You're about to confront the thing beneath the surface, the real wound, the unspoken fracture that prayer alone was never meant to carry by itself. Before we go deeper, I want you to breathe, because yes, God hears you, but He also confronts us, shapes us, and calls us into action. Now, pause for 2 seconds, place your hand on your chest. Whisper this simple prayer with me: God, heal my heart. Type this as your first prayer today: heal my heart. And if this message already touches something raw inside you, hit like so this reaches another husband or wife who's silently breaking. Because the truth is this: prayer is powerful, but prayer is not magic. Prayer is not a replacement for repentance. Prayer is not a replacement for communication. Prayer is not a replacement for honesty. And prayer is not a replacement for the work your marriage desperately requires. When intimacy breaks, it doesn't shatter overnight. It breaks through years of unsaid words, tiny dismissals, chronic misunderstandings, festering disappointments, cold nights, numb apologies, half-hearted affection, walls built from small hurts that were never healed. You pray for restoration, but God sees the deeper wound. You pray for connection, but God sees patterned avoidance. You pray for intimacy, but God sees the emotional starvation underneath the silence. Sometimes the distance you feel isn't spiritual at all. It's emotional neglect, it's unresolved conflict, it's the slow death of vulnerability. And God, as tender as He is, refuses to heal a mask. He will only heal what you're willing to expose. The truth is, many couples pray for intimacy to return, but they never address the behaviors, the wounds, the fears, the sins, or the emotional patterns that broke the intimacy in the first place. And so you feel stuck, spiritually devoted, emotionally exhausted, relationally starving. But today, God is about to confront what you've been avoiding, and He's going to show you why prayer alone wasn't fixing it. Not because it's weak, but because He never designed prayer to work without truth. This is where your healing begins, not in pretending the marriage is fine, not in waiting for the other person to change, but in facing the wound beneath the lifeless intimacy. This is the moment the silence ends. You've been praying, but the truth is, many marriages don't break because of a lack of faith. They break because of a lack of honesty. You can pray for your spouse every night. You can cry out for God to revive the closeness you once had, yet still wake up next to someone who feels emotionally distant, mentally distracted, or physically disconnected. Why? Because prayer heals the spirit, but God will not override a heart that refuses to confront the truth. There are marriages built on years of unspoken resentment, where one person swallowed their hurt silently and the other never noticed the slow erosion taking place. There are marriages where affection faded little by little, not because love disappeared, but because busyness replaced intentionality, anger replaced vulnerability, and ego replaced compassion. Prayer is powerful, but prayer is not a bandage for wounds that are still bleeding. Some of you are praying for intimacy to return, but deep down you know you stopped talking about the things that matter. You avoid the difficult conversations because they feel exhausting, or you fear they'll lead to another argument, another night of silence, another emotional shutdown. But here's the truth most people never admit. Intimacy doesn't die in the bedroom. It dies in the everyday moments where one person stops feeling seen, heard, valued, wanted, or emotionally safe. Intimacy is not just physical, it's spiritual, it's emotional, it's the invisible glue that holds two souls together. When communication breaks, trust breaks. When trust breaks, warmth breaks. When warmth breaks, intimacy follows. And so here you are, praying desperately for God to restore what feels lost. But restoring intimacy requires something many couples fear: truth. Not the softened truth, not the half-truth, not the polite truth, the real truth. The truth about the way you've been hurting, the truth about the things you've buried, the truth about the distance you pretend not to feel, the truth about how long you've been starving for connection while smiling like everything is fine. Some of you are praying for your spouse to return emotionally, but you never told them you feel abandoned. Some of you are praying for affection to return, but you've been carrying bitterness in silence. Some of you are praying for closeness, but you built walls so high that even God is asking you to open a door. This is where many believers get stuck. You don't just avoid the hard conversations, you spiritualize the avoidance. You tell yourself, "I'm giving it to God," when really, you're terrified to expose the wound. But God cannot heal what you refuse to reveal, and intimacy cannot return where the truth is still being hidden. Right now you might be thinking, "But I'm trying, I'm praying, I'm believing." And yes, your faith matters, your prayer matters, your endurance matters. But hear this with love. Prayer cannot replace responsibility. It cannot take the place of apology, communication, courage, or emotional accountability. You can pray for your spouse's heart, but God also calls you to examine your own. You can pray for unity, but God may ask you to lay down your pride. You can pray for healing, but God may ask you to confront the forgiveness you've been avoiding. Now, breathe for a moment. Don't run from this. This is the turning point. This is where the real healing begins. Whisper this: "Restore us, Lord." Type it if you want it to reach heaven with intention. Restore us, Lord. Because God is not ignoring your prayer. He is revealing the part you've been avoiding. And until that part is addressed, intimacy cannot resurrect. When God exposes a wound, it's not to shame you, it's to save what's left. And there is still something left to save. There is a hard truth many Christians resist, not because it's complicated, but because it demands something from us that prayer alone cannot substitute: responsibility. We long for God to heal the intimacy that once felt natural, effortless, alive, but we forget that intimacy is something God entrusted to us, not something He forces onto us. Some marriages pray for change while repeating the exact same behaviors that broke the intimacy in the first place. You want connection, but you still shut down in conflict. You want tenderness, but you still retaliate when you feel hurt. You want understanding, but you refuse to communicate your fears honestly. You want closeness, but you avoid vulnerability like it's a threat instead of a bridge. This is where the spiritual and emotional worlds collide. Prayer opens the heart to God, but communication opens the heart to your spouse. Prayer invites the Holy Spirit, but humility invites healing into your relationship. Prayer softens the soul, but consistent effort rebuilds the intimacy that's been lost. God never designed prayer to replace the work. He designed prayer to strengthen the heart while you do the work. So many couples ask God, "Fix this," while silently hoping He will fix it without exposing them, without challenging them, without confronting the habits they have protected for years. But God loves you too much to leave your marriage in a place where intimacy is built on avoidance. He knows the truth. If He healed the symptoms without addressing the roots, the brokenness would return again, deeper, colder, and harder to reach. Sometimes the healing you pray for doesn't come immediately because God is waiting for you to confront the part of yourself that keeps sabotaging the intimacy you're asking Him to restore. There are moments when your marriage is not stuck because God said not yet, but because you said not me. You said, "I won't bring this up. I won't admit that. I won't forgive that. I won't be the first to change. I won't be vulnerable again. I won't expose what I did wrong. I won't risk being rejected twice." And slowly, intimacy suffocates under the weight of pride, fear, shame, and stubbornness. Some of you prayed for healing while still holding the very dagger that wounded the relationship. Some of you prayed for closeness while still hiding emotional walls behind your back. Some of you prayed for unity, while quietly nurturing bitterness like it's a pet you feed with memories. Hear this clearly. God responds to integrity, not pretending. God responds to confession, not silent resentment. God responds to humility, not spiritual performance. You can't pray for intimacy and protect the behaviors that destroy it. You can't pray for connection while withholding affection. You can't pray for peace while clinging to silent punishment. You can't pray for healing while refusing to communicate the truth your spouse desperately needs to hear. Right now, heaven is not silent, it is speaking through conviction. This is not condemnation, this is invitation. God is calling you into courage, courage to speak, courage to confess, courage to forgive, courage to let your heart soften again, courage to stop hiding behind spiritual language and finally show the human truth beneath it. Whisper this simple, dangerous prayer. Change me, Lord, because healing doesn't begin when your spouse transforms. Healing begins when you stop expecting prayer to do the work you were called to do. The intimacy you lost is not gone. It is buried under layers of fear and silence. But if you're willing to dig, God will meet you in the dirt and rebuild something stronger than what you had before. There comes a moment in every restoration journey where something shifts, a realization, a revelation, a truth you can no longer ignore. It's the moment when you stop asking, "Why isn't God fixing this?" and you start asking, "What have I been refusing to face?" This is the turning point. This is the moment where the fog clears just enough for you to finally see what God has been trying to show you all along. Prayer heals the heart, but actions heal the marriage. You can pray for softness, but you still need to speak gently. You can pray for connection, but you still need to reach out first. You can pray for trust, but you still need to stop hiding your emotional truth. You can pray for breakthrough, but you still need to break the silence that is suffocating the intimacy between you. Some of you have been longing for God to move, but God is longing for you to move, not in your own strength, not in panic, not in desperation, but in obedience. Because prayer prepares the heart to obey, but obedience is what rebuilds the bond between two people. You see, intimacy is not a mystery. It is the byproduct of two hearts choosing honesty over ego, kindness over pride, connection over convenience, and forgiveness over silent accusation. You are praying for closeness, but you still flinch when tenderness is offered. You are praying for emotional warmth, but you walk past your spouse without making eye contact. You are praying for unity, but you shut down the second. The conversation becomes uncomfortable. Here's the truth God has been whispering. You cannot pray your way out of behaviors you continue to repeat. If your words cut deep, your actions must soften. If your silence wounds, your voice must return. If your bitterness poisons the atmosphere, your heart must learn to let go, not because your spouse deserves it, but because your soul does. And when you take even one step in humility, God multiplies it. When you break open one locked door in your emotions, God breathes through it. When you lay down one piece of stubbornness, God restores 10 pieces of intimacy. Right now, God is meeting you at the midpoint of this story. Not at the end, not after everything is perfect, not after the relationship magically feels like it used to. He is meeting you right here, in the tension, in the unfinished healing, in the place where you're praying for a miracle, but still learning to move your feet toward it. This is where transformation begins, not when your spouse finally understands you, but when you choose to act according to the love you still carry inside you. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Not the sign that everything will instantly change, but the sign that God is ready to rebuild with you if you're willing to step forward. Whisper this gently with sincerity. Lead me, Lord. Write it if your heart means it. Lead me, Lord. Because God cannot lead a heart that refuses to move. But the moment you choose action, even a small one, heaven responds, compassion returns, warmth cracks open the cold, walls begin to loosen, intimacy takes its first breath again. This is the midpoint, this is the shift, this is where the healing stops being something you pray for and becomes something you participate in. You are not powerless, you are not forgotten, you are not waiting on a miracle. The miracle is waiting on you. There is a moment, sharp, unavoidable, where God stops letting you pray around the issue and forces you to confront it. A moment where the silence between you and the person you vowed your life to becomes louder than your prayers. A moment where you realize the intimacy you're begging God to restore cannot breathe in an environment where no one speaks the truth. This is that moment, the breaking point, the confrontation, the place where the story either collapses or resurrects. You can feel it, can't you? The knot in your chest, the heaviness in your stomach, the awareness that the distance didn't come from nowhere, that something in you or your spouse has been running, hiding, avoiding, folding into silence while the marriage slowly suffocates underneath it. And here is the truth you must face. Intimacy cannot heal in silence. Silence is the cage where resentment grows. Silence is the soil where misunderstandings rot. Silence is the cold wind that pushes two hearts further apart, even while they share the same bed. Many couples pray for God to restore their intimacy while refusing to speak honestly, to confess what's been hurting them, to reveal their fears, their wounds, their disappointments. But God will not heal what stays buried. He will not mend what you refuse to uncover. He will not resurrect the intimacy you keep locked behind emotional walls. Some of you have built entire fortresses around your hearts, not because you stopped loving your spouse, but because vulnerability felt dangerous, because past betrayal made you cold, because you fear being rejected again, misunderstood again, or unseen again. But hiding does not protect intimacy, it strangles it. Every time you hold back your truth, the enemy whispers another lie. Every time you avoid the conversation, distance moves 1 inch further. Every time you pretend everything is fine, your heart grows quieter and colder. You cannot heal what you won't reveal, and God is confronting you now, not to shame you, but to rescue you from the prison of silence. He sees the tears you cried when your spouse fell asleep. He sees the longing you bury under routine. He sees the ache in your chest when affection feels rare and conversation feels forced. He also sees the unresolved conflict still poisoning the atmosphere. He sees the unspoken disappointment still sitting like a stone between you. He sees the fear that if you open your mouth, everything will fall apart, not realizing it's already falling apart because you haven't spoken. Hear this clearly. Your marriage will not heal by accident. It will not drift back into connection. It will not magically find its way back to warmth. You will not wake up one day and suddenly feel close again. Healing intimacy requires intentional confrontation. Gentle but honest, tender but truthful, courageous but humble. Some of you need to say what you've been avoiding for years. Some of you need to admit the hurt you keep hiding behind your smile. Some of you need to confess the resentment you've been feeding. Some of you need to apologize without explaining. Some of you need to finally listen instead of defending. This is the climax of your story. This is the moment where heaven leans in, waiting for you to choose honesty over pride. Say this softly without fear. Bring us back, Lord. Because God cannot rebuild a marriage built on silence, but He can heal any marriage built on truth. There is a moment, quiet, sacred, almost unnoticeable, where the atmosphere shifts. It doesn't happen with fireworks or dramatic declarations. It happens in the softening of your voice, in the courage to speak gently, in the willingness to look your spouse in the eyes again without flinching. It happens when your heart whispers, "I'm ready," and for the first time in a long time, you mean it. This is where redemption begins, not when everything is fixed, but when you decide to stop hiding. When prayer and action finally meet, something powerful awakens. The intimacy you thought was dead begins to breathe again, not perfectly, not instantly, but steadily, like a small flame learning how to burn after months in the dark. You start to feel your heart move differently. You begin to realize something holy. God was never distant. He was waiting for this moment, the moment you stepped toward the healing you kept praying for. It's here, in this gentle turning, where God begins to rebuild what silence destroyed. Walls loosen, tension softens. The coldness that once felt impossible to break starts to melt beneath small but honest efforts. A soft conversation replaces an argument. A gentle touch replaces withdrawal. A shared moment replaces weeks of numbness. A quiet apology replaces hidden resentment. And you realize something. God doesn't restore marriages through miracles alone. He restores them through people who are willing to love with humility, courage and truth. You begin to show up differently. Your spouse notices, your heart notices, heaven notices, because when prayer becomes partnership, when faith becomes movement, when honesty becomes your language again, intimacy finds its way back home. You begin to forgive, truly forgive, because you finally understand that forgiveness is not letting someone off the hook, it is letting your heart breathe again. You begin to listen, really listen, because you're no longer hearing from a defensive place, but from a place that longs to understand. You begin to speak, carefully, gently, because you know your words can either build or break the person you love. And slowly, without force, without pressure, without pretending, God stitches you back together, not into what you used to be, but into something stronger, something wiser, something more tender, something more aware of how fragile and sacred intimacy truly is. This time, you don't take connection for granted. This time, you recognize how silence poisoned you. This time, you understand that honesty is an act of love, not an act of conflict. And this time, you walk with God, not just in your prayers, but in your actions. You hold each other with more gratitude. You speak with more gentleness. You fight with more respect. You apologize faster. You forgive sooner. You choose each other daily, because now you know intimacy is something you protect, not something you wait for. If you feel that longing right now, if you feel that small flicker inside you saying, "I want to try again," respond to it. Don't bury it. Don't fear it. Don't silence it. Whisper this softly. "Make us whole, Lord." Write it if you want to mark this moment in faith. Make us whole, Lord. Because when prayer and action join hands, when two hearts open instead of hide, when truth replaces silence, intimacy doesn't just survive, it rises, and so will you. Now this is the end of this message. It would be great if you can give a like and comment something in the comment section below, and maybe share this message to someone who really needs to hear this. A like or a comment can push this video in front of someone that really needs this. Thank you for watching to the end. This is the Exiled Storyteller, and stay tuned for my next message.